With a standard rotation on its way, there will be a lot of cards leaving that are super impactful on today's metagame. Ashes of Outlands, Scholomance Academy, and Darkmoon Faire will all be going to Wild, and that means there's a lot of cards leaving. Did you know if you subscribe right now, Whizbang the Wonderful will be in the core set? You might as well do it. Starting off with Ashes of Outlands, we saw the introduction to Demon Hunter, but we also saw a lot of cards that kind of flew under the radar until later expansions came out and Demon Hunter wasn't as, meta warping as it was. A card like Overgrowth, which has been used in almost every single druid deck imaginable because of the effect of gaining 2 empty mana crystals, basically propels you past the mid game into the late game. This card will be leaving, and it'll be very interesting to see if Blizzard decides to print another ramp spell in the following expansion, or they decide to add some cool cards into the core set that have the ability to ramp for druid. Incanter's Flow, which is arguably my most hated card ever, it got nerfed twice and I still hate playing against it, will finally be leaving to Wild, which means I no longer have to just sigh in pain when this card is played against me. Skull of Gul'dan is also leaving, which has been Demon Hunter's main draw engine for quite some time. The ability of drawing 3 cards and reducing their cost by 3 is just a really powerful effect, and we all have been there when they top deck it and it just makes you kind of cry. The entire Libram package will be leaving, with Alder Attended all the way down to Libram of Hope, which is kind of nice because I feel like we've seen this archetype for a very long time. But I will give credit where credit is due. Blizzard did a pretty good job of keeping Paladin relevant for the entire 2 years that this was in the format, and I think Libram Paladin overall was a pretty decent balance and a showcase of what a really good archetype can become. Sethic Veilweaver, Renew, Apotheosis will also all be leaving, which means the random generation of priests will be significantly lower, and hopefully it stays that way because, we all remember Forge of the Barons, how ridiculous it was. And that's pretty much it when it comes to Ashes of Outlands. Overall, this set was pretty well designed, and it didn't feel like a lot of cards were super annoying or super broken. They did a pretty good job with this set. But let's move on to Scholomance Academy. All right, so Scholomance Academy was obviously a super impactful set. There was a lot of really broken cards, and this was the first time we saw the dual class cards that added a lot of really powerful effects into the game. Lightning Bloom will finally be rotating, which is a really big deal because that means there'll be less cheating out mana and playing Kazakus on turn 4 or 5 whenever druid feels like they want to play it. Raise Dead will be leaving, which means less Flesh Giants, less way to get your good stuff from Warlock, and this is a really impactful card that's been basically played in every single Warlock deck, so seeing it leave now is kind of nice. Animated Broomstick will also be leaving, and this card was obviously really good, but if they want to go to more of a board-centric metagame, this card has to leave because this card was way too good at board swinging. The card I think I'm most excited to leave is Secret Passage for Rogue. I feel like this is the meta defining card in almost every single Rogue deck since it was released. It turns out just getting a brand new hand is very powerful, especially for 1 mana. I also think that this card leaving might be the most impact we see on the metagame, and it'd be very interesting to see what Rogue decks actually survive without Secret Passage. Glide will also be leaving, which is a pretty frustrating card when they get to outcast it against you. Not to say the card is broken, but it'll be nice to never worry about Glide ever again. The whole Guardian Animal package is also leaving, with Twilight Runner, obviously Guardian Animals, Lake Thresher, and Teacher's Pet are all leaving. It's gonna be kind of weird to see Druid without it, even though they don't really play it anymore. Jandis Barov and Lord Barov will be leaving as well, and both of these cards were absolutely insane in their own right. Jandis Barov used to be 5 mana with the same effect, which was disgusting, and Lord Barov has been the premier control card for both Warrior and Paladin. Even though the following cards were nerfed, it's important to remember their impact on the metagame. Penflinger, Mindrender Elusia, and Gibberling were all very powerful cards when they were pre-nerfed, and it's kind of sad to see them go because they don't really have the limelight because they were nerfed so hard. Flesh Giant will also be leaving, which means for the Demon Seed Warlock deck, this will be a much less tempo-oriented deck because you can't really cheat out big giants anymore and go for those amazing swing turns. Instructor Fireheart will also be leaving, which leaves Shaman in a weird spot for any kind of value-oriented deck because this card was kind of a saving grace for Shaman when they needed it most. Other than that, a lot of the cards in Scholomance Academy were just really good, and it's not worth just mentioning every card, but like Tour Guide, Wand Thief, Cult Neophyte, stuff like that are also leaving. This set rotating will be insanely impactful. Darkmoon Faire was introduced after Scholomance Academy, and during this expansion, a lot of the cards felt like they were just padding existing decks that were formed in Scholomance Academy, but there is actually a surprisingly amount of good cards in this expansion. Ildari Studies will finally be leaving, which means you can no longer play this and just get a random skull or a super powerful outcast card. Oh my Yogg, which is the most frustrating secret I've seen in a very long time, will finally be leaving us, which means I no longer have to play around this godforsaken card. Prize Plunderer, which has been a notable card in a lot of rogue decks recently due to its insane effect, is finally leaving as well. Resizing Pouch will be gone, and with the new Guff, this card was very impactful because you just get 10 mana cards almost every single time now. Backfire will be rotating, which means Warlock is going to be lacking in a way of drawing a lot of cards at once, but they did print the new hero for Warlock, which is Tamsin, and there's also just always life tap, so I'm sure Warlock will be okay. Nazmani Bloodweaver and Palm Reading are both being rotated, which means there's not going to be as much mana reduction for Priest, which is kind of nice because both in their own way are very powerful effects. One of the most premier removal cards we've ever seen with Hysteria will finally be rotating, which means you don't have to play around this card anymore, and that's going to be extremely nice. Sword Eater will also be leaving, which means the Pirate Warrior gets a little bit weaker, but this card has just seen a lot of play since its release because the effect is very good for the mana cost. Arbor Up will be leaving, which will leave Token Druid in some kind of weird spot where they don't really have a lethal finisher, and Arbor Up has just been one of the best cards we've ever seen in Druid, and I, for one, am very excited for this card to leave. Trampling Rhino will also rotate, which means the current iteration of Face Hunter gets a little bit weaker as this is a vital part to finishing off your opponent. Can I just get a moment of sadness that our favorite card, Ticketus, is leaving us? Like, oh my god, I don't know if anything will be able to fill the void in my heart because this is just everyone's favorite card. And no, I'm not crying, someone's cutting onions, please. In all seriousness, I know a lot of people are excited for this card to leave, but I'm just gonna leave you guys with a little bit of a warning because if they did print this card before, there is a chance that we'll see an effect like it soon. Mask of Cthulhu is leaving for Mage, which means they have less burn from hand. We'll see the whole Corrupt package leave, which means Strongman's leaving, and Yashiraj will also be gone. Cenarian Ward will also be leaving, which means that Druid has less survivability in the late game, but they might print another effect like this. In my opinion, the most impactful card leaving from Darkmoon Faire will be Il'gynoth. OTK Demon Hunter was the most powerful deck in 2021, winning the World Championship, by the way, so this card leaving is a huge dent in Demon Hunter's combo arsenal. It's just kind of crazy looking back at the year of 2021 and seeing how many cards have actually been super impactful and just basically make these decks so powerful, and I'm really curious to see what the game is going to look like after rotation. I'm sure I missed a lot of cards that people are very excited to leave, so let me know what card you're most excited to leave, and if you did enjoy the video, make sure you subscribe, and as always, you look fantastic. I'll see you guys in the next one.